I mean,
Got
you
it.
got it
Got
on.
it.
Hello.
Right. Hello.
We're mid-story.
Oh, we're missed. All right. Well, I'll have to start again because we're recording now, I guess. But
Awesome.
just to the chase. So we were all sitting around talking about faith and stuff, and all of these little stories are kind of helpful, I guess. But
Mhm.
we were talking about the time when Alana jumped over the hedge, right? And that night, I don't remember it very clearly. It was a long time ago, Francois.
Mhm.
But Liz, who was here, she's a Course in Miracles student, and Alana were having this bit of head-to-head around the table, like it was getting kind of heated, and like if you're
Mm.
doing a Course in Miracles properly, you should have lots of those moments, hopefully. So,
Oh, really?
and yeah, hell yeah, let's get it all out in the
Hey,
open.
Francois. Hi,
And I remember
love.
Liz said something. There was about 10 people around the table at that time, and Liz said something to Alana, well, if you think you've got faith, throw yourself over the hedge or something like that. And Alana had been recovering here doing the Course in Miracles. She just had a very bad motorcycle accident and broke both of her knees forwards over the handlebars of the motorbike, like snapped her legs forwards, And she'd had pins and rods and everything and operations and the whole shit. And so she was recovering. And our driveway, because we live on the top of a hill, it's incredibly steep. And you don't need a four-wheel drive, but a four-wheel drive is great. So it gives you an idea of the terrain. Anyway, I said to Alana, I said, you'll be walking up and down that driveway within 12 months. But we'll do the course, and at some point you're going to walk that. And she's like, oh, no. She arrived in a wheelchair with crutches and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we housed her here and to do the course.
I
So
saw, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think I saw her in that first 50. That's when I first met you. When I first
yeah,
saw you, and I was like,
probably.
oh, I want to know what this is about. Yeah, and you guys did a Facebook or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, look it up.
So Alana's legs don't bend at the knees very well. She's had all the steel pins and rods taken out, but they're still very stiff. And so her body's like a barrel, and she's got these two wasted away sort of sticks for legs that don't really. Like she's like a character. Her physical body's like a character in a dream. But good. Anyway, so she picks herself up from the table. Liz challenges her to an act of faith, picks herself up from the table, and everyone else is busy talking. I sort of caught a little bit of earshot because these guys were at the end of the table. I heard Liz say something about throw yourself over the hedge, and someone else here was talking to me, and I looked and I just saw Alana, like with her two pin legs going doing, 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 doing across the lawn. And then she threw herself over the hedge into the darkness, right?
Wow.
So she didn't know what was on the other side of that hedge, but I knew. We have this bougainvillea bush that grows, it's up here behind the outside granny flat. And the thorns on it are this long, right, at least. And twice a year, I cut the bougainvillea bush back and I throw it all over the hedge exactly where Alana jumped, because it's just a straight down, and at the bottom of the fall is all these branches with thorns. There's lantana bushes growing down there, which are scratchy as fuck. If you run up against them, they just shear the skin off your arm. They've got all these sharp edges on the branches, and it's a nightmare down there. Nobody.
It's a nightmare.
Nobody else. No one else at the table, right, knew that I threw all the garden trimmings over the hedge down the embankment down there, and nobody else knew what was really down there. But I did, and I saw Alana. I saw her feet like go like that. Her feet as she went out into the darkness. But because I trim this hedge like 3 or 4 times a year, the top branches on the hedge, they're not thin and wispy like a normal bush. They're all stubbly and hard, right? Because it's where I continually cut all the time. And somehow, right, God knows how, but somehow part of her clothing got caught in the thing as she went flying over. And she went flying over. She wasn't like trying to hold on. And it saved her, like the whole thing. Hey, Kev. And so Alana, when I raced over to the bush, everybody else just sat there talking, kept going, even the girl that challenged her. And I ran over to the bush and I like leaned across.
Everyone just kept talking?
Yeah, nobody really noticed that she'd gone, you know.
Oh, wow.
It was a busy night. And anyway, I leaned over and I looked down and there's Alana hanging on by one hand to this little branch, you know, like thinner than my finger. And then the drop below her. And I don't know how she managed to catch that branch because she just jumped straight out over the thing.
Wow.
But she must have got her clothing tangled because that's what happened to me, right? And she was like dangling there down the embankment, laughing her head off like just a cackling old witch, like ah. And I reached through the bushes and pulled her back up. And no one's ever done that leap until the other night. One of the guys, we're sitting around again, and there was the two French guys, and I was finding it hard to explain because one of them doesn't speak much English. And we're talking about faith. And Garrett said something like, you have to prove your faith or something, or it's a
Okay, so then that's going to come to my question again. So go ahead.
Right. Oh, Joe is there. Joe is there.
Yeah, she lied.
But anyway, so I jumped over the hedge. And there you go. That was the thing. And like, but something on the branch on the hedge caught in my shorts, in the top of my shorts, and I have this big scratch now. It goes right down, nearly to my bits.
Yeah, to your member.
Exactly, to my member. What's that game that you play for?
That's what brought my question up. Like, so, you know, what's the difference between that? You're saying, don't test God, like, don't test God. So God's like, don't test me.
I guess it's the way that it was put, because I saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate rather than a need to prove anything to myself. You know what I mean? It was like, it was just in the moment. It was just in the moment. I didn't feel like I needed to take a leap of faith or do anything to prove anything to myself. But Garrett kind of challenged me and put it out there. Hey, Joe.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am with that. Like, it felt like Satan was giving Jesus a challenge. You know what I mean? That's what I mean.
No, not really a challenge. It was just like, you know, I can't even remember the preamble that we were talking about, but we were all like just going for it.
Yeah, I just always wondered that because, I mean, you often talk about it and other people talk about it, like, you know, that faith is its own reward and that you really have to develop your faith and your trust.
Faith is its own reward, and you will have plenty of opportunities, like during the course of your life, to not really test your faith, but to use faith. Right. So it's not really a test. You use faith, you don't test it. If you're testing it, I guess that's for the wrong reason. You know, you're trying to prove to yourself that God exists rather than wanting to find a different way to live your life, actually believing in God. You know what I mean? One is doing it from a point of doubt, and the other one is, well, I believe in God, and if I practice his ways, maybe that can bring me to a greater abidance with him. Okay? So
that's the question that came up for me. And that story made me feel some sort of way when I read that. I was like, because I immediately went to read it and I was like, oh man. And I felt some sort of way. Wow.
Well, you know, everybody gets to, you know, every interaction you have, every relationship that you have, you enter into it in a leap of faith. You know, you wouldn't get in your car and drive down the road at night if you didn't have faith.
Right.
You don't know if a drunk driver's coming the other way or not. You got no idea. You do it faith, but you do that subliminally. You do it subconsciously. You just assume you're going to go from A to B.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I assume I'm going to live when I walk out of my door.
That's a kind of a faith. That's a kind of a faith, you know. But when you get to the end of your life, when you get to the end of, it's like, I'm sick of my life. I'm sick of struggle. I'm sick of my bullshit. I want a way, right? Well, the different way's been there all along. but my choices about myself in regards to that haven't been educated, or haven't been, what would you call it? I haven't been aware of them particularly.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like you young people, and it's like they don't want nothing to do with religion. But religion's the first thing that I came across when I was a young person. I was invited to join the church choir by my friend whose dad was the minister at the church across from the school. Right. He was one of my best friends. And I went along and I had the worst singing voice ever. And they asked me not to come back. But that was the first place where I came into contact with ideas about faith. I only went 2 or 3 times to that church, but it set something in my mind that perhaps if I hadn't have said yes to going along to the choir thing, I would have never come across the concept of faith. Or maybe it would have been years later, depending on what my cycle was. I don't know. You know, so like, who the hell knows? But everything is bringing you towards it. Everything is bringing you towards. And the final thing that happens is, prior to your enlightenment, you've got nothing but faith, because you've got nothing else, like literally nothing else. You're done with the world.
Yeah.
You know, you're sort of in this void where I don't want the world, and I'm yet to discover the truth of myself. And there's a decision that's made in there not to compromise that, not to go back to the world, you know, but rather to face the unknown, or face the remembered would be better, because you do know what it is. Just forgotten. So anyway, but I mean, people make up things for themselves. I did. I was before I found the Course in Miracles and before enlightenment and everything, I used to give myself these tasks of building faith. You know, like I would travel distances and I would leave my car at home and I'd leave my money at home and stuff like that. And I trust that I would get there and I would get back and whatever I needed would be provided. And I did all these things, not because really I doubted that there was a God, but because I wanted to live a different way. I wanted to find something else. I'm sick and tired of everything I did my normal old way. Car keys, got my wallet, I'll be right now. It's like I wanted to trust the universe.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
I just wanted something different. I wanted my experience of my thing to be different than it was. And it's like, and it's, you know, it was different every time, but every time it was a miracle, and every time it was something incredible. And not only did it validate God, I mean, originally in the outset, I used to think, oh, maybe that was just a coincidence. Something would happen, you know. Somebody would be kind to me, or somebody would help me, or things would fall into place, you know. Maybe it's a coincidence, but when it happens more than once and it just happens again and again, is it really a coincidence? Or is there power? Is there something else going on that you can really depend on? You know,
that's a little freaky too when that starts happening. Like my trip when I went to Virginia and all that stuff happened. That was like, so I was like, oh man. I was like, man, I could not. There was nowhere in my mind that any of that stuff would happen. I didn't even know that I loved all those things that were just given. And it was just funny. Like, I can't believe.
It's like Barry going to the
exactly
the same thing. He said yes, and something else happened that was a bit beyond his spectrum, and he had a moment of total appreciation and like just wonder. And it's like, now you look at that sense of wonder, how you felt in that moment, or how you feel in the moment where something new happens or something happens.
It's crazy.
Right. You haven't had those moments since childhood.
Oh, like the girl like coming into my room and like, you know what I mean, and coming across the fire and like the one was like
brand new for the first time again.
And llamas, and it was crazy.
That's life. That's life. It's brand new now. Brand new now with no past reference, no future reference. And you're in the wonder of, wow, look at this. Look at this all.
It was crazy. Yeah.
Which we take for granted as we grow up, and we say, oh, well, that's just this and this is just that. And then there's no magic, no wonder, no miracle in anything.
No.
You know? What way to live is that? That's terrible.
Yeah.
You guys all have to go to the Great Frog. I guarantee it'll be. Barry will serve you. Barry will be there at the counter and pick out what you need. You know those, have you ever seen those movies where like the kid goes to the junk shop or the antique store and there's a mystical book or something and there's always the old benevolent kind of person in the shop, you know, the old lady there that's like, oh, I know which book you need, and gives the book and it starts the journey and whatever. The great books like that. So in Barry's story anyway, in my story too. Oh, there's
I had what did I have?
all right, what is the ego?
Goddesses.
Enough stories.
And llamas.
Ready? What is the ego?
You always stop at my story.
Yeah, your story doesn't matter.
You always stop at my stories.
Good.
Hang on, guys. Just before we start, I've got really bad asthma. Can I be excused from reading and just listening, please?
Oh, hang on. A violin. Wait a minute. The violins are playing.
You don't want me barking on tape. It's really bad.
You just sit there and be quiet. That would make a nice change.
Oh, thank you.